Hey everyone, welcome to Age of Reason. Today is Sunday, September 7th, 2014. We are a show that promotes positive atheism, common sense, knowledge, skepticism in general. We're broadcasting live out of Yokohama in Japan. With me today it's Minako. So you had a pretty eventful week. What happened to you?
I had emergency admission to hospital.
Yeah, how long did you stay there?
Just one night.
Yeah,
So now it's almost okay, but still having problem. But it's okay now.
yeah, good. Yeah, you're kind of a regular host here, so it's not good to lose you. Okay, let me just switch that off for a second. Don't need extra noises. Okay. So for people who want to follow us on Facebook, we have a page. It's facebook.com/agereason. If you need to email us regarding the show, if you have any questions concerning the show, or if you want us to talk about some specific topic, you can email us at tv-ageofreason@tv-ff.com. I'll just let you talk. So today you wanted to talk about Jehovah's Witnesses or something?
Yes. As a doctor, today's theme is Jehovah's Witness people. Why can they accept blood transfusion? This is today's theme, one of the theme.
Yep. So go ahead.
Okay. So according to them, the Bible told them not to eat blood. And for them, blood transfusion means same as eating blood. And once they had transfusion, they feel that they are polluted and they can't keep being believers as Jehovah's Witness. This is the problem I'm talking from now.
Yeah, I just did a little bit of research about it last night just to not be totally lost in the topic. But basically, like, they do believe in the kind of very early Christianity, like basically, first century Christianity, really old stuff. That's why, like, probably Genesis is important for them, I suppose. What else did you find out?
Yes, they pick up something from the Bible, Genesis, Leviticus,
Yeah,
and Acts.
yeah.
These are the evidence for them that saying not to eat blood.
Right. So what kind of issues do you have then, I mean, in the hospital?
Yeah, as a doctor, to save patient, sometimes we need blood transfusion, but they refuse it. So I'm going to make a short explanation about it. First, why we need blood transfusion? We need oxygen to produce energy to live. Once oxygen inhaled, it's transferred through our lungs to blood. In blood, red cells are the vehicle of oxygen. So to deliver oxygen to distant tissues, organs, we need enough red cells as a vehicle of oxygen. Adding to that, we need lots of elements of blood plasma or platelets to maintain the coagulation system, that is, to heal wound or injury or surgery, by injury or surgery. So that's why we need transfusion when we lose massive blood. So, of course, blood transfusion having some side effects like allergy or infection. So we doctors are always considering its benefit and side effect and choose the best way for the patient to save their lives. This is a kind of background and explanation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So can I continue?
Just a few questions, I guess, but not maybe not to the topic yet. But what was the biggest blood loss that you had to assist? How much blood was lost? Just in general, I mean.
In general,
Yeah.
it depends on the
Well, I mean, what's the biggest one?
biggest one, 30,000 liters.
Well, that's impossible. You mean 30 liters? Just
30,000 milliliters.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
yeah. Yeah.
Or more.
Okay. Yeah, so go ahead.
So the problem we are having is it's been discussed for a long time in Japan, almost for 30 years. In 1985, a boy had a traffic accident and got injured severely. And his parents were the Jehovah's Witness and kept refusing to give any transfusion to him. Then finally he died. No one was sued for, including parents and doctors, except the truck driver. After that, an adult woman who believed in Jehovah's Witness refused transfusion before her operation. It was kind of liver operation, I guess. And the doctors agreed with avoiding transfusion, but as a result, she lost huge amount of blood during the surgery, and they had to give her blood transfusion. And after her recovery, she sued all the doctors for invading her personality, and she won finally in court. Those kind of issues happened several times in Japanese medical history recently. So several medical associations, including Japan Medical Association, started to make guidelines. In 2008, several major medical associations decided the guideline. It goes like this. It's kind of very complex.
Yeah, sure.
So, should I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's considered in some cases. Case 1, the patient is over 18 years old, and if that patient demands no blood transfusion, we doctors should take A or B. A, to make a disclaimer agreement not to give that patient blood transfusion. B, advise to that patient to find another hospital. You'll never give that patient blood transfusion. The second case, if the patient is less than 18 years old, but over 15 years old, if their parents are Jehovah's Witness and refuse transfusions, but the patient demands blood transfusions, this case, patient has to sign to agreement to give the patient blood transfusion. Next, parents are not Jehovah's Witness and demand blood transfusion to their kid, but the patient refuses because the patient is Jehovah's Witness, parents have to sign to the agreement, and we doctors have to make so much effort, maximum effort, not to give that patient transfusion. But if we need to give that patient to save its life, we can give that patient blood transfusion because their parents demand. The third, parents and the patient are Jehovah's Witness and refuses blood transfusion. It's same as over 18 years old. So we doctors should get the disclaimer agreement or advice to find another hospital. The last case is parents are not parents are Jehovah's Witness and refuse blood transfusion, but that patient is less than 15 years old. We have to, if parents refuse, both parents refuse, we doctors have to make effort, but not to give that patient blood transfusion. But finally, we can give transfusion to save that patient's life. Still, if parents refuse it, they can be sued. Doctors can sue that those parents as child abuse as quickly as possible and stop the parental authority for a while. Next, if only one parent refuses, the other admit the transfusion, that the one who admit blood transfusion should make the agreement to give that kid blood transfusion. This is the guideline.
Yeah.
Outline of
Yeah.
the guideline. So, what do you think?
It's pretty legal stuff, but yeah, sure. Did it ever happen? I mean, so in your experience, it happened, like in your personal experience?
To be honest with you, I have only a very few number of Jehovah's Witness, and they have very small surgery that's like surface, only on surface, so no blood loss.
Yeah, and there's also like not that many of them actually. I mean, it's usually kind of overblown, I think, their numbers, because I think I'm not sure if it's in the world or just in America, but they're less than 10 million.
In Japan, I think maybe certain numbers of people are believing.
Well, yeah, sure, but I mean, like, it's not like a huge...
Not huge.
Yeah. Mormons are more, I think.
But I'm not sure. But we
probably.
can't ignore the number of the people.
Well, no, of course, yeah. Yeah, is that all, or you have more?
And still, this guideline is just guideline. Doesn't have any, what can I say, having power like law. But we should obey this guideline. And then problem occurs. And if the case, the patient is under 15 years old, even though they are child, they have been raised in those family. That means once they had blood transfusion, they feel guilty even though they are kids, and then they can't be a family member anymore after the surgery. It will be a lifelong problem.
So what happens to them?
I don't know. It's just kind of still suspected case. I don't know if it's happening right now or before.
Yeah.
If
Sorry.
we do it as guideline, it will be
Yeah.
happen like
Yeah, sure.
And I think another problem is we doctors will feel very guilty if we lose our patient without doing anything. If we give them blood transfusion, then we might be able to save them, but we will lose our patient just in front of us. It's kind of our, it will be like trauma.
Yeah, sure.
I think these are problems now. Well, of course, there are so many problems still, but these two are the major problem, I guess.
Yeah.
And this argument still going on. We don't have any conclusion. And these several years still, some Jehovah's Witness believers died because they refused blood transfusion, like pregnant woman having cesarean section and have huge blood loss, but refused blood transfusion and then died like that.
Yeah.
Very sad thing.
Yeah.
Leaving her baby alone.
Yeah. Is that the only religion that is like this, or are there others? Are you aware?
As far as I know, it's the only religion to refuse blood transfusion.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's something to do with their blood being pure, and so they cannot mix it. Basically, I think it's like that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Is that all?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So that was kind of a case study. We do that sometimes on this show. The next thing I'm going to talk about, and actually I have to jump out for a second because I need to get a book that is not here right now. But we're going to talk about some of the Bible fallacies. In particular, last week we talked about what like religious people say about atheists, and that's pretty disorganized usually because they lack information, they lack education on atheism. Most of them don't even understand what it means. So, but today we're going to talk about what the Bible says about atheists, and so we have a bunch of quotes. We're going to go one by one and just try to see if it makes any sense whatsoever. And I have to warn some of the people, some of them are actually probably contradictory to what religious people say about us. So, all right, here we go. From the top, we got Jude 1:22. It's a very short one. It says, "And have mercy on those who doubt." That's a very interesting one for me because, well, it means basically whoever is not a Christian believer, the Christians should have mercy on him.
Yes.
That's very interesting because in today's debate and climate, that usually gets totally forgotten and totally ignored. They just don't do that at all. I mean, they don't show mercy to us. They say like, "Oh, you'll burn in hell" and stuff like that. There's no mercy at all. I mean, sure, not all. I'm not generalizing but I'm saying like there's a lot of people out there who don't really follow that in particular.
So you mean ignoring this Jude thing?
Yeah, sure. Because if they had mercy on those who doubt, it means they would be merciful to everybody, not just atheists, but also like Muslims, whatever religion. And some people are just, extreme bigots, and they don't. I mean, they just, because Christianity and Islam and all those big religions is basically a big club. And the main point of the club is just to compete with each other. It's basically who is number one, who has the biggest penis, basically. That's how it works. So, but the mercy thing is, I don't know. I don't see that. So, why don't you do the next one? That's James.
Before I'm talking to the Bible thing, I have to say, I haven't been studying about the Bible, so I'm not Bible researcher. So I just reading the sentence as it is.
Yeah.
So I feel just from the sentences.
Well, yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah.
So
That's okay.
the James one.
Yeah.
You see that the person is justified by works and not by faith alone.
Yeah, and that's James 2:24, by the way.
Yes, it's very true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that I think gets ignored most of the time, because for a lot of religious people, they actually are justified by faith alone.
Yes.
And not by the works. I mean, if you look at some priests, for example, well, they pray a lot, but they don't do anything about it. I mean, they don't actually help anybody. They just pray, they get donations, they get a good life, they get an easy life because they sell an invisible product.
But for them, pray, including in the works. Right?
Well, exactly, and that's the problem. Praying is not, it's nothing, basically. It doesn't work, it doesn't do anything, it doesn't do any good to anybody, ever. There's a saying among atheists, nothing fails like prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer fails all the time. I mean, and it's also very, very selfish one, because, okay, I don't even know what that was. There are people out there who pray for literally everything. They can't find the keys to the car before they have to go out, and they're in a rush, and they suddenly find the keys, and they go like, "Oh, thank God, I found the keys." Okay, that is ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. I mean, it's such a selfish thing to say. And actually, not today, but in the near future, I will go through some. I'm on a forum basically, and there are people out there who post sometimes exactly that kind of stuff. They pray for ridiculous stuff, like, "Hey, I found my pen, thank God." And not today again, like I said, but in the near future, I will go through that list, and we can talk about that, because it just gets ridiculous. The next one is, we still have a bit of time. The next one is Psalm 14:1. It's basically like to the choir master of David. So it says, "The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They do abominable." I can't even pronounce that word. They do abominable deeds. There is none who does good. In this sentence, the fool is not like an idiot or somebody who is mentally challenged. It just means somebody who is morally deficient, who doesn't have...
You mean atheist? In this sentence?
Pretty much, yeah. Just checking that noise on the side. Yeah, it basically mostly means atheist or somebody who lacks morals. I love this one because for me it's an interesting one actually to talk about, and maybe you can jump in later after I finish. But it says they are corrupt. Okay, well, I'd like to know the evidence for what exactly they're talking about, because if you talk about Christians and priests and stuff, so they're not corrupt. That's fine, because they're in the Christianity club. So the fact that the Vatican has like so much money and doesn't use it to do good, I mean, it could do a lot more good if it actually used all its capital. And obviously the church institution is extremely corrupt, and everybody knows that. It's not just Christianity, it's most of them, maybe all of them. So just to say that somebody who is morally deficient is corrupt, to me, that's just hypocritical, because they do the exact same stuff. It's not like Christians are some kind of angels, They do abominable deeds. Okay, well, priests often get involved in sex scandals. That's an abominable deed right there. The way that Christians hate gays, that's the Baptists mostly. There's just so much hate coming out of there, like directed at a group of people, and they base that hate on that book. It's always that one book, because they don't read anything else, I think. They don't read anything useful anyway. There is none who does good. Okay, that is just not true at all, because Bill Gates is an atheist. He helps.
Oh, is he?
He's at least an agnostic. Bill Gates helps a lot of people. He builds schools in Africa and other places. He's very active in AIDS research and probably cancer research too. He gives a lot of his money away. Unlike the Vatican, who that could give that big sum of money away, but doesn't. It's a shame that in that context I can't talk yet about Mother Teresa, because that would be very appropriate to mention her in this, because she was basically a puppet at the time. She was a puppet of the institution. Sure, she was used, but she was smart enough to, I hope, she was smart enough to know where how to use that money. But that money, those charities that she got, mostly were accumulated. They were put in a bank account, and that money just sat there. It was never used. She built those death clinics, especially in India, I think. What she should have done instead is build hospitals and help people, instead of just putting people in a room, basically, and just leave them to die. That is so cruel. And then she gets a Nobel Peace Prize. I can't understand that. I just can't believe that. It's beyond me. It's absolutely not deserved. Not that everybody who won it deserved it. I mean, Yasser Arafat won it. He didn't deserve it either. But for me, it's a nonsense thing to say. So.
But people only know about the surface thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. We live in an environment today where people usually work a lot and they don't have time. I mean, when they get home after work, they're tired. The last thing you want to do when you're tired is to look up some intellectual video or something extremely educational. No, you're going to watch some comedy. You're going to watch something silly just to forget about work. And the weekend, usually most people have a family, so you're busy with your kids. Again, you're not doing anything intellectual. You're just going to some aquariums, or it's not really intellectual. So that it's kind of a failure of society. But I think it's on purpose, because the governments don't want smart people. They don't, because smart people are a danger to them. Then we can challenge them on almost everything they do. They don't want that. So for them, the more stupid the population, the better. Yeah, that's in every country. Even Japan, in America, you just you don't even have to look very far in America. Just watch Fox News. There you go. That's all you need. And they have a big following. There's other people too on the radio that are really just, they pretty much distort every fact. They create their own stories. Because that's their business, essentially. So, do you have anything else to add on this one? I know I took a lot of time, but...
Not now.
Yeah.
But I think those kind of look like not atheist people, sometimes saying there's no God in their mind, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, like, this is... That one is a little bit distorted, and I think it's also because some atheists don't really maybe understand atheism in a way. I mean, the real atheists, I don't know anybody who would say there is no God and case closed. They don't say that, because if we say that, then that gives us a kind of burden of proof, and then we have to prove that it is indeed like that. We can't.
So we are agnostic atheist.
Agnostic atheist, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. Let's do one more, I guess, and then I'll jump into this video I wanted to do. So this is, the next one is Romans 1:20. You want to read that one?
For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. Very difficult.
Yeah, this one is not so easy. What do you think about this one?
I have no idea, because I'm agnostic, so that doesn't make any sense.
Ha! Yeah. Well, I mean, the Bible doesn't make much sense sometimes. That's just the way it goes. But the way I can decipher this is, in a way, it talks about, it gives a kind of evidence for the existence of a God. But we can't see him or her or it. But it kind of acknowledges that, well, that's okay anyway, because it says, for his invisible attributes. Okay, so he's invisible.
Yeah.
All right. If something is invisible, it might as well just not exist. I mean, that's the way we understand science at the moment. I mean, everything is material, you know, and so we don't have anything in the world that is invisible. Nothing. It doesn't exist like that. That's why atheists often say, if it's invisible, it might as well just not exist at all. It might as well. So that's, I think it's a justification for him. We can't see him, but he's there, you know. His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly perceived. Perceived means that it's been seen, it's been tested in some way or another. Okay, by who? Who? But the people who wrote the Bible? Well, yeah, they probably perceived it. They're the ones who created the whole thing. Ever since the creation of the world, in the things that have been made. Well, okay, this basically goes back to the intelligent design theory. Intelligent design is basically like, well, so religious people, they look around the world, they look at mountains, they look at the sea, they look at the sun, and they think it's so perfect that God must have created it. That's intelligent design. Now, when I look out the stuff, out there at the mountains and stuff, it's pretty random to me. It looks pretty random. It may look perfect, but it is pretty random. And in fact, if you listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson, he often says that it's random. And religious people hate that word, because for them, everything needs to be organized. Everything needs to be set in a...
by God.
Yeah, because they cannot accept this idea that it's random. It's the same that it's hard for them to accept the idea that the universe is infinite, because they like to think that everything is in a closed system and nothing is beyond that. And that's why, like I told you, like the latest thing they do is that they take a paper and they will draw like this big kind of circle on the paper, and they ask you, okay, so like all that circle here is all the knowledge in the universe. And then they ask you, so if you had to draw a picture of, your own understanding of your own knowledge, basically, what will you draw? And they say, like, well, most people just put like a little dot here in the middle of the page because we don't know a lot of stuff. And then they say, like, okay, well, is it reasonable then to assume I love that word, assume, that in the rest of the knowledge that you don't know, God exists. Well, yeah, sure, it's possible, but does it match reality? No. And also the other big fallacy they make with that thing is that what do they mean by the whole knowledge of the universe? What does that even mean? For me, it makes no sense at all. So the question is broken. And religious people often ask broken questions because it's kind of, well, it's actually a sign of ignorance, but it's also a way to trick people because the question is broken. So how can you answer a broken question? The best way is just to not answer.
But they don't need any evidence based on science.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, exactly. And so but they assume that out there is this, magical circle of knowledge just floating around in the universe. For them that is okay. And that has no evidence.
That means they stop thinking.
Well, yeah, of course.
So,
well, that's basically all I have to say about this one. It's not that easy to decipher some of them, but the next thing I want to do is I found on the internet this guy, and I think his name is David. I'm not sure. I haven't watched it really. Well, if that's his real name anyway. He's basically a Bible apologist. He defends that the Bible is true, that everything in it is true. And he made a series of videos where he talks about it. So I think every episode we have, I'll do like one of his videos. It's between like 5 to 8 minutes long usually. It's in 6 parts. And there's other videos he made too, and I want to talk about them. But I have to warn people that are watching, the guy doesn't understand atheism at all. He will make clear mistakes later in his... he has extreme misconceptions about atheism, basically. He doesn't understand it. He thinks he understands it, but he doesn't. So let's watch the video clip, and then we can talk about it. So let me just cue it up here. Okay, and so let's watch it, and we'll
do you
get
have
back.
Time?
Oh yeah, sure.
Hello everybody, my name is David. We're going to go through a series of 6 videos that are titled, Is the Bible Trustworthy? And this first one's going to be very brief, but when you go out to look for truth, it doesn't really matter what people believe. It only matters what's actually true. I mean, if somebody says that they're going to stand in the middle of a freeway, a busy freeway, and never get hit by a car, it really doesn't matter that they believe that. It only matters what's true. And obviously that kind of a person's going to get hit by a car. So when you're looking for what's true, you have to find things that have evidence for what is true. Now, when I've looked at a study of world religions, I found that there are 3 that have at least some type of information that can potentially back them up. Those 3 are Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. Now, when it comes to Islam, you're going to find that there are an awful lot of references in the Quran, in the Hadith, which are oral traditions of Islam that are equal to the Quran, according to the Muslim belief system, and then also great prophets in Islam. Those 3 items, there are over 100 different references to Jesus, to Christianity being the way to heaven, to the Bible being the thing to look to if they don't find the answer in the Quran, things like this. I'll just give you one example. If you look in Surah Al-Imran, which is the name of a book in the Quran, Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verses 42 through 55, makes 3 points about Jesus himself. Those 3 points are that Jesus is holy, he has power over death, and that he knows the way to heaven. So that's just briefly on Islam. I can recommend 2 books to you God Loves You, My Muslim Brother. This is a phenomenal book written by a gentleman named Minako. He was a Muslim, born and raised in a Muslim country, gained a law degree in a Muslim country, practiced law in Egypt, another Muslim country. He studied the Quran like an attorney would study it, and it's phenomenal. You'll find over 100 different references to Christianity in the Quran, and as what I said, the Hadith and the prophets. Also, if you're ever looking about witnessing to Muslims in a safe way, the camel training method is a phenomenal thing to pick up for a book. This teaches a way to witness to Muslims where it's not dangerous. Tens of thousands of Muslims have come to the faith in Christ through this method, the camel training method, and this is by Kevin Greason. You can Google that or check on Amazon and you'll get that. Sammy Tanago's book, Glad News, you can do the same thing. Now, the other religion, Judaism. Now, Judaism is pretty interesting because it has the Old Testament in the Christian Bible is what they use for the holy text for Judaism. And there are a lot of verses in the Old Testament that support the entire Bible and Jesus is God. I'll just give you some verses. You can look them up yourself. But Isaiah chapter 53, the entire chapter you can read. Psalm chapter 22, verses 16 through 18. You can look up Proverbs chapter 30, verse 4. Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. And Daniel chapter 9, verses 24 through 27. All of these basically are referring to Jesus. If you look at those verses and ask, who is this section of the Bible speaking about? And all those are Old Testament scriptures I just gave you. You'll find out what the conclusion is. But I want to make this video brief. So I'm going to get to the 7 points that sets the Bible apart and Christianity apart. So let me just give you the title to all 7, and then I'll cover each one in a little bit more detail in future videos shortly. Number 1, the Bible's the best-selling book of all time. Number 2, the Bible claims to be written by God. Number 3, the historical evidence supports the Bible. Number 4, the archaeological evidence supports the Bible. Number 5, the scientific evidence supports the Bible. Number 6, fulfilled prophecy supports the Bible. And number 7, statistical probability supports Jesus as God as well as the Bible. Now, something you should know, Christianity is the only religion on earth that has evidence to prove itself true. And as you see the rest of these videos, and there's a total of 6 of them, you will find that to be true yourself. So please go on to the next video, and thanks for tuning in.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, did you catch any of that?
Kind of.
Yeah, the audio was not so good from the laptop. Well, actually, so while we're on the topic, excuse me, here it is. I got it. That's the book that they use. So I know that he recommends a lot of books. I can also recommend a book, actually. There you go. Christopher Hitchens, God is Not Great. Read that. I think it's better than the Camel's Guide or whatever he recommended. God, I mean, I can't even imagine why anybody would write a book with such a title. He talks a lot about Genesis, and just before we run out of time today, I actually want to go over it a little bit. There's a few things I want to say about this video. So, David, if you're watching, I already downloaded your videos, so don't remove them in shame, it's too late. He mentions a lot of stuff in the video that, to me, is not evidence. Oh, I know he thinks about it as evidence, but it's not. The first thing he mentions is this highway example. I don't even understand why he goes into that, because, to me, it makes absolutely no sense. You got his example, right, about the highway? So, he says, like, you ask a person to go stand in the middle of the highway and he will get hit. That's his statement. Genius, isn't it? What do you think about that?
No idea.
Well, I think it's ridiculous. You should think it's ridiculous too. That is just one possible outcome. Yes, if you go stand in the middle of the highway, you could get hit by a car. It's not necessary that you get hit by a car. It's a big difference in terminology. I know also that if you stand on the highway and people see you there standing, they can stop for you.
Of course.
Well, he doesn't mention any of that. That's the problem with this guy, and I'm gonna bombard him as much as possible because the statements that he makes are ridiculous. He usually gives one example, and it's tunnel vision. It's only one possible outcome, when in reality there's like 5 different outcomes at least or more. So that's the problem with those people. But anyway, he mentions then that the Quran makes a lot of reference to the Bible. So what? Yes, the books are intertwined. What is he trying to prove? What are you trying to prove, David? I'm trying to figure you out. I can't. I'm sorry. What are you trying to prove? Yes, the books reference each other. So what? I already mentioned the highway example. He mentions that a lot of the kind of old stories are oral traditions, so it means that stories that were passed just talking to each other, stories that were remembered. Okay, we know how well that works. Have you ever played the game of the broken telephone? I think that's the name of the game.
No.
Okay, well, it's basically like you do it usually with kids in a classroom, but the kids need to be sitting behind each other usually, and so the teacher whispers a message to the first student, and then the student, but it's whispered, so it's very easy to confuse words because it's not good quality, and so then that student repeats to the student behind him, and then it goes back and back and back, and the last student has to repeat the message. Whoever gets it right wins, I guess.
Yeah, we have same game.
Of course, yeah, it's a universal game. So usually, in my experience, every time we played that game, the last message was always broken. It was never the correct one. So we know how well oral traditions work. They don't.
Yeah, it's true, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, and then he mentions those 3 things that the Quran says about Jesus. So like, I missed the second point, but I probably got it right. He says like he's holy, power over life, I think, and he knows the way to heaven. Okay, yeah, sure. You can write anything in this book. Doesn't make it true. And then he goes into those 7 points, and I missed one of them while I was taking notes, but okay. I'm just going to go very quickly over them, and I'm going to jump into Genesis because it deserves an analysis. So, the things that he said was that the Bible is the best-selling book. So what? What's your point, David? Harry Potter sold a lot of books too. It doesn't mean that Harry Potter or magic or flying around is real. There's a lot of gullible people out there. They will buy anything. There's a lot of people out there who believe the earth is flat. So the best-selling book is not a reason at all. Okay, it claims to be written by God. Okay, we know that that is not true. The Bible was written by men. Yes, they claimed to be listening to the voice of God as they were writing it, but there is no evidence to support that. Okay, then he mentions those 3 evidences: the historical evidence, the archaeological evidence, and the scientific evidence. I think most of them are under extreme scrutiny right now because a lot of historians actually say that Jesus didn't even exist. He was made up. It's all created. It's just a myth. Archaeological evidence? What do you mean by that? You mean like what? The remains? There's no remains to examine. There's none. Scientific evidence. That's my favorite.
I want to listen to it.
Well, I don't even know what he means by that. I mean, that's the thing. Like, what scientific evidence supports the Bible? I don't know. I definitely missed one point because there's a blank here. And then the statistical probability. I don't know what he means by that. What statistical probability are you talking about?
But those are coming in his next video, right?
Yeah, so he'll probably talk about them. So for now, I just kind of did a quick overview, but I would be very interested what he has to say. But I already debunked most of it, so it will be extremely interesting. Just before we finish, I actually do want to go into Genesis. If you got the book, grab it, and we can go from the beginning. I basically underlined in the book everything that I find extremely ridiculous and harmful to modern societies. So I'll just go from the beginning, but it kind of jumps a little bit, so just bear with me. But it goes right from the beginning of Genesis, page 1. Okay, at the beginning it says the earth was without form and void, means empty. Okay, what is the evidence for that? Obviously I know Genesis is like the oldest book written by desert dwellers, but there are people out there who still believe it literally, and that's the problem. So the earth was without form. I can be okay with that, but void means empty. No, it wasn't. We know it wasn't. It started as a solid core on the inside, and it kind of built around that gravity center. And there's a lot of passages here, just on the first page, which sound very strange because, for example, God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. I didn't know he spoke English, but okay. And then it repeats many times, and God said it was good. Who wrote this? Is it written by a 5-year-old? I mean, that's how I was thinking when I was a kid. You know, like I play with some toys and I say like, oh, it's good. You know, like this is supposed to be a book that they base their morality on. So you have sentences like that in there. Very strange. There's this thing about, and there was evening and there was morning the third day. And God said, let there be light. Who is he talking to? That's my question. I know it's not supposed to be taken literally, but some people do. And that's my point. Who is he talking to? Is he talking to himself, like a mental patient? Perhaps. Very strange. Now the one that is actually, the first part that is actually harmful to society, I think, is just on the next side here. So God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply. Okay, now that one is actually very harmful because the church is usually against contraception in general, against birth control. And that one is very, very dangerous because it could make the population of the world spiral out of control. It's already out of control, in my opinion, but it's already overcrowded. But it doesn't help when they read this book and you have this sentence, you know. Then there is this thing about, so then God said, let us make man in our image. No. Man made God in his image. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds. So basically the man is at the top of the pyramid, has control over the animals. That's how they interpret it anyway. It's not the actual way to read that, but that's how they interpret it. And again it repeats, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Okay, if God created man in his own image, he has to pick a side. It's either a man or a woman. How can both be created in his image? I can't understand that. Is God two-faced? Is he split into half? Is he like half man, half woman? Maybe. Anyway, it's really interesting to decipher this. So just a few more before we wrap. This is still Genesis going on. Yeah, so then it goes into this Adam and Eve section, and of course the tree the tree, the apple. You may surely eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of knowledge. Of course, that is the key. They don't want you to have knowledge. You just have to read this one sentence. You don't need to read the rest of the book. That's it. That's all you need. They don't want you to have knowledge, because knowledge challenges this book and other holy books. So they don't want you to do that. They don't want you to have knowledge. They don't want you to think for yourself. And just a few more, almost out of time. Probably the last one. I'll just mark it here for next time. Then the Lord God said, "It's not good that the man should be alone. I will make a helper fit for him." So the woman is automatically the helper.
Me? Now?
Well, sure, if you say so. That puts the woman automatically under the man. And unfortunately, again, in Christianity, you know, like, women had to fight a long time to vote and stuff like that. Mainly, it was because of this. So that is harmful too. Of course, well, the final thing here is about, so that was before Eve was created. So while Adam is sleeping, God just takes one of his ribs. That's nice. That's a nice God. He just takes a rib while you're sleeping. Did Adam ask for that? No. So God just created a toy, basically, and I'll just take a rib, you know.
It hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How did he do that? I mean, without taking out of the flesh, I wonder. But anyway, it goes on, and well, we ran out of time for today. But I will definitely carry on, because there's still a lot of stuff in there. And every episode we do, you can grab the book and you can just follow with me, because it's all in there. This is the actual Bible. So anyway, we have to wrap for today. So this month we only have one episode, because in 2 weeks, well, I have a holiday, and I don't want to break the cycle of every 2 weeks. So I don't want to do it in 3 weeks. So the next episode will be, I think, in October, early October. And I'll probably do more of that, or I might have a special guest coming. We'll see how it goes. I think that's all for today. Do you have anything to add?
Only one thing I can add.
Yeah.
I want to add that we doctors respect every people having morality and their personality. So it's same in Jehovah's Witness people, but we want to save their lives. So both, it's very conflicting.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. All right. So we'll see you in October. Have a good one.